on the attack, but it might have been better to just free up one of your threats.
You're watching the Eternal Tournament Series.
Hello and welcome back, everyone, to round 2 of the 4th weekly for the Eternal Tournament Series Season 5. I am, of course, Bairdrus, once again joined by my wonderful co-host, Sir Rhino.
Hello! I am here to cast, but apparently the producers hate me and want me to cast a uninteractive aggro deck versus this lovely control deck that I'm a little bit worried about here coming into this matchup.
Yeah, I have to agree. This is going to be a little bit hard for QuinZ if babamavs can get his plan into play, as QuinZ is going to be on a JPS control deck versus babamavs, who is on Rhino Bart. That's what I would assume this deck is called. I think it's actually Bart Plate. It's
called Bartolo Plate, but yeah, it's everybody's favorite Rhino Plate, you know, with your 4 Silvering Familiars that you're trying to put weapons on. But Splashing Shadow for Bartolo, the Seducer, who also has Aegis and is unblockable rather than flying. Sure. And then looks like some Slays and Statuary Maidens are in there because, you know, your opponents are going to be chump blocking your unblockable units or something. And then Lethrite Falchion is double shadow, but also makes an appearance here just to really rub it in. So the game plan here is get Bartolo or Silverwing Familiar down, put weapons on them, and see if your opponent has an answer, and if they don't, you win. In addition to that, you're still playing all your Oni Ronins and Champions of Glories and Rakano Outlaws and stuff. They're just not as reliable because you are in 3 factions rather than 2, but you're really just trying to interact on a very uninteractive axes with your evasive Aegis units. On the other end, we've got, QuinZ with a control deck. It's not straight Feln control. It's not Huru control. It's a mashup. You've got your harsh rules. You've got some of your Feln spells. But the downside here is it's going to lack a lot of the ping effects you see out of a straight Feln deck or whatever, where you're not able to play the full suite of Vara's Favor or stuff like that. And babamavs
just concedes the first game. He had 3 depleted power and a bunch of red cards and a Seek Power. Did he have sideboard cards in? Is that what this is? He didn't de-sideboard. Okay.
Oh, he didn't. He had sideboard cards there. I didn't look at his whole hand. All right, so that is a game loss.
Yeah, that's gonna be a game loss here. Okay, sorry.
Here we go. All right,
notice on the first turn. Yeah. Rekenner just came into our ear and said that that's actually not a game loss, since it was noticed on the first turn. We do have a leniency policy that says if you concede on the first turn, noticing that you have sideboard cards in your hand, it is not a game loss. So we're going to give babamavs a few moments to de-sideboard his deck, and then we're going to restart game 1.
I don't want to show any bias here, but I think babamavs should get a match loss for having Bart in the deck.
Yeah, I think you're gonna have to bring that one up with Rekenner. We might be able to work something out like that, though. We'll see how the matchup goes. You know, if it's a 2-0 crushing defeat in babamavs' favor, maybe we'll run that one by him. We'll see, though. We'll see. Yeah. I definitely agree, though. This is going to be a very hard-fought matchup for QuinZ. If that hand had been legal out of babamavs there, I'm not sure QuinZ game. Like, he had Bart, he had Scepter, he had Hammer.
I didn't get a good look at the fixing, but it looks slow. But yeah, QuinZ just has, especially main deck, just so many iffy cards for this matchup. He's going to be using Protect to pop Aegis, I can tell you that much. But like Steward of the Patch, you're usually relying on being a good blocker. It doesn't block like half the units. Recurring Nightmare certainly is not part of, like, that's the win con of this deck. I don't know if it's quite the win con you want in this matchup against a deck with torches. This is just a tough spot for QuinZ. I'm hoping he can pull it out. He's got a lot of removal, which is typically what you want against Rhino. I'm just not sure if he's got enough ways to efficiently both pop the Aegis on these units and like answer to them all in time. It really comes down to this comes down to more what the aggressive babamavs draws more than what really QuinZ draws, because QuinZ deck is mostly just redundant answers all over the place, just lots and lots and lots of removal. So it's reasonable to expect QuinZ to draw removal and the fixing to cast it. It's really about babamavs. What threats does babamavs present, and how does that line up against QuinZ removal?
Yeah, certainly. And we do see QuinZ with his hand is not fantastic. And babamavs, of course, has what essentially looks like the nut draw here. He is missing a Justice. And he also was technically a turn behind since he had to play a depleted power source on his first turn.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I mean, he's still got 2 1-drops down on turn 1.
Yeah.
QuinZ has only got a Permafrost to take care of the Oni Ronin. There's going to be damage coming in. There's a Ricano Outlaw to follow up. I mean,
yeah,
this is going to be the beatdown on 2 power.
Important to note, QuinZ has 4 Lightning Storms. They're just all in the sideboard. So babamavs does not have to worry about them right here. And QuinZ opting to main phase that Wisdom of the Elders when you have an Island's Choice in hand. I guess he just doesn't expect a Fire Source and a Shogun Scepter to come down here, but I think if that did happen, I'd like to have Island's Choice up as an option to kill a unit. Instead, it looks like he's trying to dig towards this harsh rule, but doesn't have double justice, and will instead opt to use a Slay.
Yeah, and obviously we've touched on this time and time again, but when you're playing these 3 faction decks, this is the curse, is when you're playing double and triple influence requirement cards, it's really hard to hit all the bases, and we're seeing that right now with QuinZ. He's lacking double harsh rule to take care of this. He finds a Seed of Cunning, which obviously still not going to do it.
Yeah.
He's
in the
not
meantime,
dropping this Slay.
Yeah, I think he doesn't care about these units too much because they don't have Warcry. They're simply just doing 3 damage a turn, and he finds that something he can tolerate against a deck with not a ton of reach. Here he'll probably drop a harsh roll just because he has 2, but babamavs continues to be stuck on 2, and QuinZ might be able to steal this one here if he just gets down to Shadowlands Feaster and starts beating down while babamavs can't do anything. Of course, he could double torch the Feaster, which we might see, but hey, a second Feaster. And babamavs not super jazzed about how this game is playing out, that's for sure.
Yeah, he still hasn't managed to pick up a 3rd power. I mean, I guess this is the way QuinZ wins, right? Like, yeah. QuinZ can win the game when babamavs never draws power. Like,
yeah, we talked about answers lining up versus threats, and it turns out when your opponent has absolutely no threats, your answers line up perfectly.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing that here now. The Shadowlands Feaster coming in for the beatdown. babamavs picks up another Bart, and it looks like he's just going to go for the concession. I can't really blame him here. That's pretty rough out of him. Obviously, I'm not rooting for the aggro deck necessarily here, but at the same time,
we're neutral, right? We're neutral parties here.
It's always unfortunate when somebody doesn't draw off 2 power. Like that's just not a very fun game. It's like when you used to play, Magic the Gathering, for example, and people, same thing.
I've never heard of
no
that.
Power drops. Never heard of that? Never heard of Power Screw and Power Flood Magic the Gathering? Or just Magic the Gathering in general?
Hey, I'm not familiar with Magic. I'm not.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Well, it's a little card game, It's
okay.
A very small property.
It looks like we are actually sideboarding here. I expect QuinZ to bring in Lightning Storm and probably Lightning Strike and probably Sabotage, just like all these cheap cards. Probably Spell Swipe coming out. I don't think that's a stretch of the imagination to say Spell Swipe comes out here. But for babamavs, how do you change your game plan? What do you change up here? You bring in the Protects just for extra protection. It looks like he has a bunch of different threats he could bring in. Sword of Ikari is pretty interesting against a unit light list. I can see those coming in. Groundbreaker, Pseudopath, Soulfire Drake. I don't know if you're interested in any of those cards. I think if you're
babamavs, you maybe bring in Protects and then you draw 3 power this game.
Yeah.
And you're probably good to go.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he tries to stick low to the ground, knowing Lightning Storms could be coming in. Maybe you just get rid of the Oni Ronin plan or something and go a little bit bigger and hope to throw off your opponent that way. But probably just going to stick to the main game plan here, add some Protects. And yeah, it looks like Soulfire Drake might come in as well, just as another fast threat. Maybe the Maidens come out just because they're a little slow. The Lethrai Falchion I don't expect to stay in. Yeah, it's a weapon, but It's not upping the health or the toughness of your unit too much. So again, you're not changing a Bart plate deck around too much post board, but we'll see what ultimately happens here.
I mean, this is
the big change here is the 4 lightning storms from QuinZ.
Yeah, Quinn's bringing in the 4 lightning storms is going to be a big difference on this early game. We see the Soulfire Drakes coming in too. It's a little bit of damage that protects, so Bart can be protected from death 3 times, or twice rather. So
yeah,
we'll see how this plays out here. Like I said, I mean, the biggest difference, in my opinion, in this game is let's see if babamavs starts with 3 power. If he has 3 power, he's probably going to hit the ground running, because he just got stalled out last game. I mean, his hand was just pure gas, but never quite got going. And Recurring Nightmare in from QuinZ. Yeah, this was something interesting I was looking at.
Yeah, Recurring Nightmare was in the main deck. This is Quinn's win condition. Essentially, Recurring Nightmare with Protect on it is the way QuinZ wins a game. He just plays it, puts an Aegis on it, and that way it forces your opponent to have 2 fast removal spells to deal with it. If they don't, you just slowly kill them with Recurring Nightmare. So this is the way QuinZ normally wins games, not via a potent concession. But yeah, it's a very interesting idea. Certainly not what you want to see in your starting hand here against an aggressive deck.
Yeah, it really comes down to certainly what babamavs has in this matchup, depending on how long it takes him to get off the ground. And since he has the Silverwing Familiar, the damage you're going to be doing is going to be neutralized pretty quickly with the Silverwing and all the weapons here. This looks much closer to how babamavs won at the first game to go. We see 2 hammers picked up now. Likely we're just going to see Silverwing Familiar dropped here, and we're going to see the weapon stack come out.
Yeah, you got one more cry out of your Oni Ronin. I guess you'll just have to live with that. It's time to get the bird loaded up here, and looks like QuinZ is trying to get one of his nightmares a head start here. He doesn't want to play it and try and block with it. He knows this bird's about to get a weapon, so just get that nightmare up to a 2-1. Got nothing else to do with their turn, and babamavs gets to go ahead to put a hammer on a bird and have fun. This is fun. All right, so QuinZ here opts to not drop Harsh Rule and instead just hits again with a Recurring Nightmare. And yeah, babamavs puts another hammer on a bird and 8 damage. This is this is kind of what we expected. QuinZ, of course, by not using Harsh Rule there, can't slay and kill the bird here. I guess he'll just opt to slay this turn and Harsh Rule next turn and hope that he doesn't die, but of course he will, because babamavs has a Shogun Scepter in hand for lethal. So that'll be game 2, and we'll be all tied up here. Of course, the slay was also lethal. Yeah, so it turns out we have currently lost Bairdrus to the ether, or something similar to that. I guess that's what you get for mentioning other games on stream. Oh, he lost power. Well, so Bairdrus having similar issues to what babamavs had in the first game of this match. But hopefully he'll fix it up much like babamavs did in game 2. So here we go to game 3. And, well, QuinZ has some Steward of the Past, which are great at blocking. Unfortunately, babamavs has a lot of units that are great at not being blocked. So we'll see how that ends up playing out. babamavs, 4 power hands, not always what you want to see in an aggro deck, but it's got all the fixing he wants. Can go open on the Fire Sigil, get that second Justice source for Bartolo. Of course, this all banks. He actually can't curve out into Bartolo even by getting that Justice Sigil here. He's just going to be going outlaw, unless he draws an Argenport banner or seat. Not even sure in the deck, but yeah, he's got 2 Argenport banners, 2 seats of vengeance. But anyways, more outlaws. Now QuinZ is hoping to draw a lightning storm here and try and clean this up. Instead, finds a Varus Favor, which is nice at pinging Aegis off of units and he's debating on whether or not he wants to use it now. Saves it because, hey, you're going to be playing, Stewards the next few turns. You already have enough power to curve out into Harsh Rule. You're good to hold the favor here. Down comes Bart. babamavs opting to not put a hammer on a unit there, especially into all that open power. Could have gotten blown out by something like an Island's Choice. And yep, QuinZ pops the Aegis on Bart. babamavs responds by immediately drawing a Protect and puts the hammer on Bart and swings in, gets a massive amount of War Cries, which I'm sure will hit another Bartolo that's somewhere in the deck. And yeah, this is looking bad for QuinZ. Yeah, so QuinZ is going to play the 5th power and almost assuredly drop the Harsh Rule. And then possibly die, depending on what babamavs drops off the top of his deck here. Ooh, QuinZ dropping the Well Played, sees the pause, the Protect. Let's see what babamavs finds next on top. Rhino Banner. All right, so these War Cries are still lurking somewhere in the deck, but QuinZ needs to draw an answer to this Bartolo right here. So again, Steward of the Pass. He's got all these nice units that are good at blocking, but certainly not going to do anything against an unblockable unit. So babamavs debating on whether or not he wants to drop his last threat onto this board. I think if I'm babamavs, I would do it here. You're not really being a Harsh Rule from this spot anyways, I think. QuinZ draws another Steward of the Past, which cannot block unblockable units, and drops the GGs and scoops it up. So, yeah, that game and match kind of going exactly how I expected. It all was kind of up to babamavs to draw the right threats and actually play them, and as long as he did, kind of got the no-brainer win there almost in a way. That Protect being very, very timely, but boy, that's just a rough matchup there for the JPS control deck. You've got all these spells that remove units, and you basically need to double up on them to deal with a lot of your opponent's threats. Of course, QuinZ instead just drew all these units instead of his spells, and that turned out to be even worse. So just a rough go there, but a good showing nonetheless. I'm sure QuinZ will still have success throughout the rest of the tournament. The Lightning Storms on the sideboard, I think, was a good call. There's a lot of mid-range here. And he actually won the game without the Lightning Storms. They just didn't show up when he needed them in games 2 and 3. But best of luck to both players in the rest of the tourney. And we'll take a quick break here. We might have a backup match. We'll see. That was a pretty quick showing. Okay, no backup match. So, all right. Okay. So it sounds like Bairdrus might not be coming back as soon as we hope, but we'll get somebody else in the booth. Maybe not as great as Bairdrus, but certainly stepping up to it. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in just a second.